So this is one of my heroes, Buckminster Fuller, saying something that we all know to be true, which is you can never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, we all need to build a new model that makes the old model obsolete. So I want to talk about that. And I will, as we go through, explain a little bit more of this, but because 15 minutes, I'm going to skip through a couple of slides and get to this. So I want to tell you a story, actually, because stories are where we're at and where we start. So my spiritual path is shamanic, which when I first started saying this to people in the 80s meant something a little different than it does now, because the word has morphed quite a lot. So what I mean by it is that I wish to find a spiritual way to connect with the gods of this land, the gods and the spirits of this land, which is complicated because the Romans did quite a good job of annihilating our shamanic baseline, and 2,000 years since has done quite a lot to continue to eradicate it. But since I was quite a small person, this is me, this is my brother, that's been the core and focus of my life. And in the process of growing up and becoming, as we said, a veterinary surgeon, because that seemed like a good idea at the time, I became more able to connect to what seemed to me to be authentic gods and spirits of the land. And along the way, there were nudges. And 3 of those nudges took the form of the deaths of things in the more than human world that were sacred to me. The first one was a hare that led to the writing of the Boudica dreaming cycle. The second was a doe and her calf, and that took me to Schumacher and got me to do the regenerative economics, because I was a vet and then I was a novelist, and I really have to say that economics was not anywhere on my radar. But hey. And the third one was an owl, and that got me into creating the Accidental Gods course, which was designed to help us all move towards conscious evolution, and then the podcast that came after it. And each time something has died and I have come across it, I've become incredibly upset and wept for quite long periods of time and gone to whatever it was that was associated with the thing that had just died with the why are you doing this? Why does something have to die? Really, I think I'm listening as hard as I can. And in each case, the response has been no, actually, you wouldn't have listened if this hadn't happened. So in the wake of these, I endeavored to listen better. And the great thing about lockdown, and lockdown was horrendous for a lot of people in a lot of ways, but I live in the back end of nowhere. And actually, I loved lockdown. I know this is a very, very difficult thing to say to the people who hated it, but I loved every second of it because I didn't have to go anywhere. And I could spend hours and days and weeks and months simply sitting on the land and listening in ways that I hadn't before, and had to go off and do stuff or had to write books. And I thought I'd finished writing books. They're too slow. They don't change stuff in time. It's not worth it. So we got out of lockdown, sort of. And last summer, I was teaching. We'd begun teaching online. I teach how to connect to the gods and spirits of this land. We call it shamanic dreaming, because dreaming for me is integral to what we do. And the one course that I always said I would never teach online is the one where we connect to the ancestors, because core to the teaching that I have from the people that I trust is just because you die doesn't mean you get to be wise. And sometimes we can connect with people who have been alive, who have agendas of their own, and we need to be able to distinguish between the ones who are coming with our best interests at heart and the rest. Never doing that online. I need to be in the room. It's not safe. And then I had students from Germany and Ireland and Switzerland who all got together and wrote to me saying, it's 2 weeks quarantine on either side of a 2-day course. Please teach what you can online, because otherwise this is not going to happen. And we're going around a circle and we're stuck in the Southeast. So I did teach it online last June, nearly a year ago. And nobody died. It went okay. It went surprisingly well, actually. And I was drumming for the biggest journey that we do on this particular course. And quite often when I drum, I also end up dreaming or journeying, whatever we call it. But not always, and particularly in this one, I had no intention of doing so because I need to be in the room. But sometimes it happens whether I like it or not. And in this particular case, things happened that I wasn't expecting, and there was quite a clear text instruction. And clear text instructions, for I'm sure lots of you do some kind of shamanic work, some kind of spiritual work. Clear text instructions are really rare. In this case, this was an extremely clear text instruction, which said, take the 30,000-year-old fossilized horse's tooth that holds one part of the southeast gate on your altar, take it up the hill on the small holding that I live on, bind it to a particular part of a particular tree where the hawthorn goes horizontal because it was laid into a hedge 200 years ago and stays that way, and now it's this size. Bind it on with horse skin, and then sit with your back to it facing southwest in a particular frame of mind as the sun goes down for an hour each night until further notice. Clear text instructions happen very rarely. Clear text instructions while I'm drumming for the Ancestor Gate have never happened before, and I have an agreement that I will listen to whatever comes because I don't like things dying in front of me. So it took a while to get the horse skin, and then I bound to the tree and I went up, and by this time it was late July, and I sat in that frame of mind watching the sun go down, and by the end of a week I had the beginning of a new novel, which I totally had not imagined was going to happen. And then the instruction was, go away, write the novel. And but you said, sit up the hill until further notice. And the answer was, yeah, this is the further notice. You can sit up the hill if you really want to, but you absolutely don't have to. You do have to write the novel, though. And you do have to start helping everybody else to understand that the writing form that matters most at the moment is creating the visions of the futures that work, because that's what my novel broadly is going to be about. And the absolute core instruction was, it needs not just to be you. So in the process of thinking a lot about that and trying to find out how we could do this, I came across this. Amazing. Why did I not know it before? And I'm going to read it for the people who aren't watching the slides. When future generations look back upon the great derangement, which is what's happening now, they will certainly blame the leaders and politicians of this time for their failure to address the climate crisis. Yes, we will. But they may well hold the artists and writers to be equally culpable. For the imagining of possibilities is not, after all, the job of politicians and bureaucrats. And I read that, and my comfortable writing world disintegrated. I've been writing historical novels for 20 years, and before that I wrote crime fiction. And why did I not understand that this was the case? And yes, the history helps us understand the present, but I'm not sure it helps us understand it a lot, because I think where we're going has to be radically different than the last 2,000 years. And most of the stuff that we have written is within the last 2,000 years. So I took that on board and thought a lot about it. And I thought a lot about the fact that it is easier to imagine the total extinction of all life on Earth than it is to imagine the end of capitalism. We know how bad things could be. We have endless dystopias. It's not hard at all to imagine a future that is the bastard hybrid between A Handmaid's Tale and The Road, and we're all going to end up being kebabbed over piles of burning tires by our bigger and nastier neighbours. That kind of thing is throughout our fiction. And we don't need that anymore, because what we think about and where we put our energy is where we go. And we don't want to go there. But we also, I don't think, want the utopias, because the utopias, for me, are always a jump away. They're always happening on another planet, Ursula Le Guin's The Dispossessed, or they're happening in another time frame. Cory Doctorow's Walk Away is a glorious and beautiful and lovely novel, and I adore it. But it's happening in a future where we have wet 3D printing and the capacity to break everything down to its constituent molecules and print it up again into whatever we want, which would be great. And I could readily imagine an amazing eco-civilization built on that, but it's not where we are. And so for me, now, if I'm going to write fiction of any sort, and as we heard earlier, all writing is fiction. Even if I'm just writing a blog, I'm writing some kind of fiction. If I'm writing novels or television or movies or dramas or poetry or songs or rap or letters to the parish post, I want to be writing visions of the future where we made it, where we made the right decisions. And it's not going to be easy. And heaven knows, I'm 135,000 words as of last night into this novel and trying to work out exactly how we map from where we are to where we need to go in ways that feel plausible, that feel you could pick up this book and we could go, yes, not only can I do that, but I really want to do that. All of us, not just the people who would be listening to this, but the people who will go out tomorrow morning and buy the Mail on Sunday and watch GMB TV, whatever it's called, I don't know, or listen to Fox News in the States. We need to get to everybody. We need to reach everybody, and we need to create the visions of where we wake up in the morning and the world is an okay place, where we are completely connected to the web of life and can ask, what do you want of me? And respond to the answer in real time, knowing that we are doing what only we can do and what we can do best. And this last one is my spiritual overlay, and I think perhaps not everybody needs that. But as a personal belief, I think if we can't connect into the more than human world, connect into the extraordinary consciousness that is the connectivity of life on Earth that we can slip into if we try, if we learn the tools, if we work out how to do it, then we're going to get into the hubris of we as human beings have all the answers and therefore we know where we're going. And we don't. And we don't. But the best that we can try is, I think, to work out the near futures of how did we get to a future 5 minutes away, 10 minutes away, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 10 years away, that we would be really proud to leave to our children. So I want to leave you with a few more bon mots from other people. Gary Snyder wrote this one 50 years ago. It would be best to consider this a revolution not of guns, because it has to be peaceful. If we start fighting, not only will we lose, but we are fighting from the old paradigm. So we consider it a revolution of consciousness, which will be won by seizing the key images, myths, archetypes, eschatologies, and ecstasies, so that life will not seem worth living unless one is on the transforming energies side. That is what I want to write towards. Okay, I'll stop. I'll move to the end. Taking on Bellina's. How do we charm the horses of our peers, the people for whom simply being what I am, a lesbian woman living on a small holding, trying to create regenerative agriculture, is a frightening thought? How can I change that? How can I create something so that their horses want to come and talk to me? This is Ursula Le Guin, who is my favorite one of my all-time favorite authors. We live in capitalism. Its power seems inescapable, but then so did the divine right of kings. Any human-created power can be changed by other people. Resistance and change begin in art. Very often, our art, the art of words. That's it. I am done. I hope I was in time. Thank you for listening.